So this was the name that he and his men were later on known by the local population, the Bulbovci, the men of Taras Bulba. He created an organization that initially was called the Polisian Sich, Polisian being an old name for that region. Sich was a form of, you could say, an administrative unit that the Cossacks had been using during the 17th and 18th century, meaning more or less a Cossack settlement that often had much autonomy from other Cossack movements. So this organization was something that he offered to the local Germans that were in control of the area after Operation Barbarossa. They agreed. They provided his men with some training and weapons, and in response, Taras Bulba and his men agreed to attack Soviet units that were withdrawing from the area, or in those cases where some form of Soviet partisans were being left behind in these pockets because, in accordance with the doctrine of Blitzkrieg, the German units were advancing very quickly, trying to encircle units, but also meaning that a lot of still well-functioning Soviet units were still left behind enemy lines, so to say. And these were the ones that the Bulbovci were clashing with. So that agreement lasted out for the end of 1941. But by the start of 1942, Taras Bulba had also been hoping for recognition of Ukraine, of their aspirations for national independence. When it started becoming apparent that the Germans had no such plans, Taras Bulba and his men started growing wary of the Germans, and they started sending letters where they were threatening to end their cooperation with them. There was especially one letter in the spring of 1942 that was written by Taras Bulba to the Reichskommissar of Ukraine, Erich Koch, so the German who was responsible for the military administration of all of Ukraine, in which he accused the Germans of persecuting the local Ukrainians, of confiscations of food, of various types of repressions, and in some cases massacres of Ukrainian villages. And he told Reichskommissar Koch that unless this stops, then the Bulbovci would have to end their cooperation with the Germans. At the same time, he started negotiating with some of those Soviet partisan units that had been left behind, trying to reach an accommodation with them instead. But in the end, instead, negotiations on both fronts collapsed. There was a final attempt in which he corresponded with the head of security, German security, in Volhynia and Podolia, Dr. Putz, and he proposed again that the Germans would give national independence to the Ukrainians in the region, that they would free all Ukrainian underground fighters. Dr. Putz said that that was way above his pay grade, that was for somebody in Berlin to decide, that all he could really do was to release the imprisoned men that were under the command of Taras Bulba himself, but not the other Ukrainians that were under the command of Stepan Bandera or Andriy Melnik, who led another wing of the Ukrainian organization of nationalists. This is when finally Taras Bulba had enough. He broke off relations with the Germans, went underground, and soon started attacking German units. This fighting went on throughout 1942, and by 1943, the luck of war had changed a lot for the Germans. Finally, they had lost. First, they had lost the Battle of Stalingrad. In 1943, they had also lost the Battle of Kursk, and the Soviet army was starting to advance in Ukraine.
Adam, I'm just going to have to interrupt you there because, as usual, we've come to the end of the segment, but we'll pick it up next time. I've had to interrupt Adam almost in mid-sentence, but fear not, if you join us next time, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Poland Daily History.